Ever since Call of Duty popularized aiming down sights 20 years ago, it's been a central mechanic of most FPS games ever since. But did you know that almost every game you've played has had to make their sights less realistic for the sake of gameplay? For example, this is what the sights on this MP5 should look like. See the difference? The problem is visibility. In real life, you have two eyes, probably, which means when an object is close to your face you can still see what's on the other side of it since your eyes are spaced apart from each other. But on a computer screen you only have one point of vision, so anything behind your sights just won't be visible to you, whereas in real life you would still be able to see past them. Making the weapon transparent would be distracting and confuse casual players who don't understand why it's like that. So what most games will do instead is subtly modify the gun's iron sights so they take up less of the screen. The most common thing to do is increase the size of the rear sight aperture, and you'll see this done in just about every game that's been made in the last 2 decades, especially for guns with a very thick rear sight with only a small hole in the center of it. In any game where you've got an AK, you can expect the gap between the rear sight posts to be widened to the point that it would be very hard to aim precisely with in real life. I could show you a few more examples, but it's safe to assume that at least half the guns in any given game have a rear sight that's much bigger and more open than it is in reality. Another approach is to rotate the gun upwards slightly in order to move the rear sight and everything around it downward and out of the way. Of course, in the real world this would cause your shots to go way above where you're trying to aim, so it annoys the hell out of gun nerds like me. Please do not do this. Please do not do this for the love of... The Call of Duty series likes to raise the rear sight of the M16 above the sight protectors so they won't block your view. Speaking of sight protectors, these things on either side of your sights are called sight protectors. They protect the sights of the gun from breaking off if it's dropped or hits something. So they need to be higher than the sights or there's no point. Sometimes when a game angles a gun upward for visibility, you'll see the sight protectors lined up as if they were the rear sight posts, even when the actual rear sight is clearly visible. Other times, a game may remove the rear sight entirely in order to present the rear sight protectors as if they are the rear sight. The ICR-1 from Call of Duty Black Ops 3 is interesting because they found a way to make the rear sight partially transparent without being distracting, only to make the rear sight lower than the front sight anyway. It's a shame because making the rear sight out of clear plastic was a really clever idea. Cyberpunk 2077 later did it properly with the Saratoga SMG. Giving the player as much visibility as possible when aiming is why every modern FPS lets you put a reflex sight on all of your guns. It's the perfect solution to give the player a floating crosshair with nothing around it that would obstruct their sight. Games set in a future setting can justify replacing the iron sights on all guns with a mini reflex sight, such as Titanfall 2 or the upcoming Marathon. Games set in the far future can even get away with projecting a crosshair that just floats in the air above the gun with nothing around it. Then again, games that don't care at all about the pretense of maintaining a diegetic interface can just zoom in the screen. The next time you're playing any modern FPS, try looking for the things we've learned about today. Rear sights that are too big, rear sights that are too low, and rear sights that are missing entirely. Now that you know what to look for, you, just as I, won't ever be able to unsee them, ever, again. You're welcome.